Linking voter rolls to Aadhaar, the newly passed Election Laws Amendment Bill 2021 enables this linkage, which the government says will help check multiple registrations of the same voter. What are opposition parties objecting to this? On Tuesday, Rajya Sabha passed by voice vote the Election Laws Amendment Bill 2021 enabling the linking of electoral roll data with the Aadhaar ecosystem. As the opposition walked out in protest, the bill had been passed by Lok Sabha on Monday. What is the government's argument for bringing the bill? The government says the bill incorporates various electoral reforms that have been discussed for a long time. The government says linking Aadhaar with electoral rolls will solve the problem of multiple enrollments of the same person at different places. Once Aadhaar linkage is achieved, the electoral roll data system will instantly alert the existence of previous registrations whenever a person applies for new registration. This will help in cleaning the electoral roll to a great extent and facilitate elector registration in the location at which they are ordinary resident, a government official said. A Parliament Standing Committee report on demands of grants of the Law Ministry presented in Rajya Sabha on March 6 this year has said the committee has been advocating linkage of unique Aadhaar ID card system with the voter ID card, which would streamline alterations in EPIC during change of ordinary residence by electors. The incidence of multiple entry could also be eliminated, which is required in participative democracy. In Parliament, Law Minister Kiren Rijiju said linking Aadhaar with the voter ID card is voluntary. It is not compulsory or mandatory, he said. The government held many meetings with the Election Commission before the bill was brought. What were these discussions? In March 2015, the Election Commission had started a national electoral roll purification and authentication program that sought to link Aadhaar to voter IDs in a bid to delete duplicated names. The Election Commission said in a release in May 2015 under this program, besides some other activities linking and authentication of EPIC data of electors with Aadhaar data is also being done. However, the EC had issued necessary instructions to the chief electoral officers of the states, union territories specifying that furnishing of Aadhaar number by electors is not mandatory and is only optional as directed by the Supreme Court. That year, the Supreme Court made it clear that the Aadhaar card scheme is purely voluntary and it cannot be made mandatory till the matter is finally decided by the court one way or the other. In April this year, the Election Commission wrote to the Law Ministry seeking expeditious consideration of pending electoral rolls, including the linkage of Aadhaar and voter ID cards. Earlier this week, the Law Ministry issued a statement that on November 16, the Election Commission attended an informal interaction sought by the PMO to finalize the cabinet note on some long pending reforms. What are the opposition's objections? Manish Tiwari of the Congress said the linking of voter ID and Aadhaar violates the fundamental right to privacy as defined by the Supreme Court in the judgment. AIMIM MP Asudin Owaisi said if the bill becomes the act, the government would be able to use voter identity details for disenfranchising some people and profile the citizens. The bill is outside the legislative competence of this House. The linking of voter ID with Aadhaar violates the fundamental rights to privacy defined in Puttaswamy case, OIC said. Riju said the present legal provisions have some disparity and some shortcomings, and to remove the same, the government, in consultation with the Election Commission and incorporating recommendations made by the Election Commission, we have brought these amendments. He detailed the proposed amendments to various sections of the Representation of the People Act 1951. Riju quoted from the 105th report of the Department-related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Personal Public Grievance and Law and Justice, which expressed the view that linking Aadhaar with electoral rolls will purify electoral rolls and will consequently reduce electoral malpractices. Why should there be a problem with identifying names that appear in multiple rolls? One of the concerns is whether the bill's implementation will be successful if the linkage is not compulsory. The bill amends the Representation of the People Act 1950 and the Representation of the People Act 1951 to implement certain electoral reforms. The 1950 Act provides that a person may apply to the electoral registration officer for inclusion of their name. The bill says the electoral registration officer may require a person to furnish their Aadhaar number for establishing their identity if their name is already in the electoral roll. Then the Aadhaar number may be required for authentication of entries in the roll. But people will not be denied inclusion in the electoral roll or have their names deleted if they are unable to show their Aadhaar cards. Arghya Sen Gupta, founder and research director at Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, said the first justification provided is that bogus voting where one person is voting more than once in taking place. If you are saying you have to provide it along with your voter ID whenever you go to vote, this will only work if providing Aadhaar is mandatory. However, this section in the law is a bit complicated because it does not seem voluntary, but the reasons on the basis of which I can choose not to link my Aadhaar will be prescribed by the government for sufficient cost. Now that sufficient cost could be is not mentioned in the bill, this would be made clear. Are there other concerns? The opposition has claimed Aadhaar linkage will enable non-citizens to vote. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor said in Lok Sabha, if you are in a position asking for Aadhaars for voters, all you are getting is document that reflects residence, not citizenship. You are potentially giving the vote to non-citizens. Sen Gupta said, this has also been mentioned in the House that Nepalis and Bangladeshis will not be allowed to vote and will ensure that doesn't happen. Now there is a conceptual confusion. Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship and it is so very clearly in the Aadhaar Act. We know that voting can only be done by citizens. I am unable to understand how this will prevent non-citizens from voting because non-citizens can have an Aadhaar card. The goal of preventing non-citizens from voting will not be solved with Aadhaar. Another concern raised by the CPIM in a statement in the view that the bill could violate secrecy of the vote, undermining the principle of secret ballots and the fundamental rights to privacy of the voter. Can individual votes be tracked that way? While individual identification of voting choices may not be possible with the linking of Aadhaar with voter IDs, it will lead to profiling, said Apar Gupta, Executive Director of the Internet Freedom Foundation. Verification of a person's identity is separate for the capturing of the identity, which is already happening in booths when a person goes to vote. But it may help the government link to other services where larger schemes may be designed based on the data, he added. The other concern is that there is documented case that Aadhaar data was being leaked. It could lay the foundation of targeted political propaganda, which is against the Model Code of Conduct as well. In April 2019, the Unique Identification Authority of India complained to police about a Hyderabad-based software company, IT Grids India Private Limited, accusing it of illegally procuring details of 782,21,397 Aadhaar holders in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana and storing these in databases. Concerns were raised on account of the alleged security vulnerabilities of UIDAI servers, which the authority denied at the time. The case was transferred to a special investigation team, but the investigation has not made any sufficient progress. Thank you.